Hey guys, this is Melanie Hawk from Why Not Me Academy. You know, if you listen to this podcast, that our goal is to get people to stop talking about their dreams and actually start doing something about it. So knowing that, I also know that we have a lot of adventurous dreamers out there that are good listeners of the show. And that maybe you're like me and have had this idea that it would be really, really cool to live around the world, maybe to backpack around, to live somewhere foreign. That's just, I don't know, a part of I went backpacking a couple times in college. And now I have kids and I'm like, oh, I could totally be the bucket list family. Like, I love the bucket list family. If you don't know who that is, you need to look at the bucket list family. Like, I could totally do that. And then it got to the point that I was like, oh my gosh, do I really want to do that? Because we were making plans to actually leave. And then I was like, oh my gosh, do I really want to have 2 kids in diapers while we move around every single week to a different country? And so just really thinking it through, but I still want to find the middle ground and live out that adventure. And so it is still in the plan. We're just trying to find the right time with 5 kids to actually do that at a phase that will still be enjoyable. We'll say, bucket list family, congrats. We decided we didn't want 2 kids in diapers with 3 elders. Anyways, so in this episode today, I am interviewing my really good friend, Erin Featherstone. In fact, we actually went to high school together. Like, we're childhood friends. Love, love, love Erin. Erin is actually a podcast host also. But today we're going to talk about how her and her husband and their 5 kids have lived in, I don't have it right here, but I think 5 different countries in the last 7 years. 8 years maybe. But they've lived in Kuala Lumpur, they've lived in London, they've lived in Dublin. Right now they're in Australia. I think I missed one, Beijing. So they've lived all over. And so we talk about how she actually does that, what kind of help she has, what things she runs into that you wouldn't have thought about. One of the things I thought was interesting, she talks about how all of a sudden she was trying to buy a car and it's kind of hard to buy a car in a different country. And so we talk about those kind of things, but we also talk about how she is a real estate investor. She doesn't live in the United States, but she is a great real estate investor, building up their real estate portfolio while not even living in the country. Now, sometimes I hear real estate investors that are like, I don't even know. Can I do that? Guys, she has rental properties, regular rental properties, and Airbnbs in the US while she lives in Australia. So if any of those things sound like they might be a good thing for you, enjoy this awesome, awesome interview with my wonderful friend, Erin Featherstone. Enjoy. Hey guys, this is Melanie Hawk with Why Not Me Academy. Really excited to have Erin Featherstone on. Erin, thank you so much for being on with us today.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
Erin is like not really glad to be here because I forced her into being here. In fact, Erin and I go back to childhood friends. And when I first started, I didn't even tell her I was going to say this actually. And so I don't even know if she remembers this. But when I married my husband, he was like the entrepreneur. And I was like, no, like stable job, corporate job, like this is what we're doing. And then at some point, I don't know when exactly, probably around the cancer diagnosis is when we switched. And I was all of a sudden the entrepreneur and my husband became like the stable, no corporate America, 9 to 5, whatever. But I get asked all the time, like, was I always an entrepreneur? Like, did I always have that spirit? And I think back and I'm like, no, like, I don't think I was. Until recently, I realized, you know what? I did have an entrepreneur mindset. And I don't know if Erin remembers this, but we took driver's ed together and we would design our future restaurant that we were going to make together because Erin is an amazing artist. At least she was in high school when she used to doodle with me. And she would draw these because I really wanted to create like this beautiful fancy restaurant where you could actually ballroom dance because people don't ballroom dance enough anymore. And I wanted to create this restaurant. And she like drew up, like, I just remember these pictures that I think I still even have because someday maybe I'll really make this restaurant. Anyways, thanks to Erin, I can say that in high school, I was an entrepreneur because I totally wanted to make this restaurant thanks to Erin. So she is one of the ones that planted my first entrepreneurial seeds. And when I asked her to be on this, she was like, what on earth do you want to talk to me for? But you guys, when you hear her story and the things that she's done, it really is, I just love it. I hope you eat it up as much as I do. So she's like so embarrassed right now, but we're just gonna, okay, pretend like I didn't say any of that. And now, Erin, tell us about after you got married, let's just go to when you got married and you started like living all over the place. So you got married and then where did you live? And start telling your story.
Yeah, so, in the course of things, we've lived in about 7 countries. We've lived in obviously the US. I've lived in Mexico. Together, we've lived in London, Kuala Lumpur, Beijing, Dublin, Ireland, and then now we're in Sydney, Australia. So I'm coming to you live from Sydney, Australia.
She is. And so if you look at me, like after a long Friday, it's like 9 o'clock here, and Erin's like all beautiful in the morning. Because if you're watching this on YouTube instead of listening to it on the podcast, you'll see that Erin looks absolutely gorgeous, and I look like the mommy at Friday
No.
at 9. Uh,
No, that's like just the luxury of like it's the morning. I got up, I did my run along the beach, I got to shower and blow dry my hair. So plus I got dressed up for you, Lonnie. So
you're the best.
I'm not
You're
I'm
the
not
best.
always this polished.
Okay, so also when she's talking about all these places she has lived, she also has 5 kids. And so I wanted to bring her on for a few different reasons. One of which is to talk about having a big family like that and living internationally. So let's start from the beginning and let's talk about Andrew's health issues. We'll call them. I don't know what you call them, but where you were living, how it came about, and how you dealt with that living internationally.
Yeah, so life just like throws all these challenges at you. And, when you're single and you're just living your life, I used to work in a corporate job at Hewlett Packard as a project manager for a long time. And at that time, HP was like the biggest tech company. And it was like this great thing. Like, it's not the life, we're planning our first stint of moving abroad. We found out that our first son had a bunch of health issues. Like, I honestly have PTSD even thinking about it, like talking about it. It was really hard. He ended up having seizures at like age like 1 or 2. And it says my internet connection is unstable. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can. You're good.
You can hear me. Okay. I'm just going to keep going. You just tell me when to stop. So,
Perfect.
anyway, so we started treating him with all these things. We were actually living in Maryland at the time, and we were taking him to Johns Hopkins University, which was a great medical place to go, great hospital. And then that's when we found out that we had to move abroad. And Mike was super excited about it. I mean, like, I'm excited with what he's excited in. So it's like, sure, let's do it. But the big question was like, well, what about all these issues that we're having with our son? But we kind of just took this leap of faith and we went and did it. And our first international move with kids, because we had already lived in London together before. Well, I was working for HP and he was working for Barclays. He worked in like banking and stuff. So we moved abroad, and it was actually like, I don't know where you want to go with this, but like it was actually really helpful because it kind of got us out of like our comfort zone in terms of like our family and our friends were nearby. So nobody was really judging us and nobody's really looking over our shoulders. So we could kind of just like be really free to like, fly to Singapore to see specialized doctors or like do some alternative treatments and things like that. And so we ended up like doing a bunch of treatments, and now he's doing a lot better.
Yeah, but it probably was it so hard, like living internationally and feeling lonely? Like, do you ever feel lonely when you're living internationally?
Yeah, like I mean, it's kind of like a two-edged sword because everybody is like, "Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. Like, I can't believe you do that." And, "Oh, you should write a book." And, "Oh, like look at this glamorous life." But then like on the other end, there's so much that's so hard about it. It really can be super lonely because you don't feel connected to the things that your comforts in life, the places that you grew up with, your friends that grew up with, and so you make new friends and it's great and you have new experiences and you're always dealing with new things, but it can be very lonely. And I almost have a sense that like nobody really understands me. Like, my best friends in the whole world that like I've grown up with, like, they are still my best friends, but no one understands me anymore. Like, on things, I feel a little bit like I'm just this lone wolf out there that, like, nobody really can understand what we've gone through, and everybody tries and everybody's super sweet, but there is a little bit of a sense of like, you know, this is the life we've chosen. We're a little bit on our own.
Yeah, living that nomad life, because even in Australia, you might it's probably a 18-month thing, right? So is it hard not to get too attached to a place too?
Yeah, we're really attached to life here. We really like it. Our favorite thing to do is like kayak to this little like private beach we found, and
Oh,
like it's so much fun living here. I grew up surfing just a little bit. We grew up in Irvine, California, you and I, and
yeah,
so I like to surf like 3 times a week. It's super fun. I love it. I joined a women's surf camp, so I go, like, I'm learning
that's awesome.
to be a better surfer. And there's a lot of things we really love about it. But like at the end of the day, like I'm gonna have to turn it on and I'm gonna have to leave.
Yeah. And like you said, that's a
So I
two-edged
mean, there's a
sword.
lot of psychology. Yeah.
So I'll go back to the psychology, but like you said, it's a two-edged sword of, you know, so cool, because in 18 months you'll be going to find new, maybe not surfing, maybe not kayaking to an island, but something new wherever you're going next, US or wherever. So it's like exciting, but at the same time, like I bet that's
Yeah.
hard to not have,
Yeah.
you know, that connection. And like, even though, like you said, you have these
Yeah.
friends, but
But
there's
like
very
I
few people that
feel
have done what
like
you've done. Go ahead.
yeah, I feel like, and this is kind of like where, because I went back and listened to a bunch of your podcasts, which are completely fabulous, by the way, and everybody should listen to them because they're really fun and inspiring, and you're
You're the
like
best.
so enthusiastic. Like I kind of feel like, you know, we all have our challenges in life, right? Like where it's like Mr. Thayer, who's like building 12 businesses at once, and then he has to go fire all his employees because then he wants to transition and move to a different direction. Like I feel like when we first did our first stint abroad, our first stint abroad was to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and it was to Beijing, China. So it was like very Asia centric. It was great. And then we moved, but it was hard at the same time. But then we moved back to the US. And then this is like our second stint abroad. Now he's with a different company now, my husband. And now he's going to open up the business in Europe. So we were in Dublin, Ireland, and then like to open up more of the Australia business. So now, like with this second stint, I feel like I've kind of learned. And what I've realized is what like makes me happy is kind of what I have to do. So what I realize is like real estate actually makes me really happy. And so I'm like crazy about researching real estate, and I purchased real estate for living abroad, and like we just set up an Airbnb in the US from abroad. And so there's like a lot of different pieces that like I realized it's kind of like helped me have a little bit more meaning, even though I'm lonely and it's hard living abroad and everything's always new and always changing. If I can like, oh, and having a home or a second home, or like for us, like that's really grounding for me because as like a woman and as a mom, like I want to have like a home for my kids. So that's kind of like what we've been working on there, so that's good. And then just recently I've really felt this nudge to start a podcast, which I felt like I had a ton of doubt and like self critical feelings about, but I've kind of really felt that nudge. And so I've started it and I've done it, and like I'm starting to get listeners, which is really scary. And like I'm like, who would ever listen to me? But like we've started this podcast. I've started this podcast. That's kind of given me like a little bit. So I kind of feel like we're abroad and we're lonely and we're alone, but like at that same time, like I've learned to just kind of surround myself with these things that like give me encouragement and like make me happy and are building kind of more of a permanence, than like to like balance the impermanence and the impersonalization of like kind of what we're going through.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good word for it, the impersonalization, because yeah, that's the perfect word. But I love, so obviously I'm like a real estate geek, and I love hearing other friends that are real
Which I
estate
love
geeks.
that about you. It's so fun to connect about that after
It
like not
totally
talking for
is.
years.
I love it. I love it. Especially there's just something about, and maybe this is just what I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I have to have Erin on, is because it would be very easy for Erin, to be like, oh yeah, and just, moving around with my husband and my 5 kids and doing my thing. But she instead has founded this grounding through real estate and investing in real estate from abroad, which is amazing, which we'll get into in just a minute, which is awesome. But to find like a purpose still, and not just settle of, yeah, we're just going to keep on moving around. Like I just eat it up. I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome. Awesome. Okay. And then, yes, like you said, you started a podcast. Erin's podcast is fabulous. It's religious based, based on the scriptures. So if you're interested, definitely go check out Come Follow Me, her podcast, because it is fabulous. But so let's go back to, oh gosh, there's so many questions I have. Okay. So you also talked about how you wanted that second home, or like that. Do you call it your second home? Do you call it your primary home? What do you call it?
I don't know. I guess it would be a second home because here is our first home.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So the second home that is the one that they will probably own the longest in their life. Have you lived in it yet?
Yeah, well, we kind of moved in, like we built it and we
Okay.
closed on it and we moved, get it set up and get it ready to host and stuff like that. So we probably lived in it for like 2 or 3 weeks and then we left.
So they have this beautiful $1 million house. I hope I'm okay to say
I
that.
know. Our life is such a joke, Lonnie. Our life is such a joke.
And they lived in it for 2 to 3 weeks. So you will call that living and not a like 2 to 3 week vacation. But they set up as an Airbnb, which obviously I love. For anyone who knows me, I love it. I love it. I love it. But then they went to their next, assignment or whatever. So, um, okay, but so then that was that, and then you went on your other assignment. Now you're
Yeah.
back living abroad, still have the real estate investing itch, and so you decided, hey, I've been listening to Bigger Pockets, and what are you doing now, and what did you find from Bigger Pockets that you're working on?
Yeah. So, I mean, before we've owned like a student property and like a few homes, but we've decided now to kind of, I have decided, I shouldn't say we, because my husband's just like, okay, honey, you've done the research. I trust you. But like, we now are building some fourplex properties to be like long-term investments. So yeah.
Yeah. No, not just, yeah. No, yeah. She listened to Bigger Pockets, and not only listened to Bigger Pockets, but actually implemented it. You know how many people I know that go to real estate investor meetings like multiple times a month and then still don't do anything about it? But Erin, living literally on the opposite end of the world from me right now, because of the time, I can look at the time and know what time it is there, that she didn't just listen, guys, she actually did. And I think that that is awesome. Now if you're listening to this, you might wonder how, like, oh well, yeah, Erin's husband's got a good job, like, of course she can do that. But I think it's very interesting because we actually have a guest coming up soon that will talk about how you can self-direct your IRA. And I was talking to Erin, and that's how she got started in real estate. Is that fair to say, Erin, that that's how you got started, was self-directing your
Yeah.
IRA?
So when I was in, like, when I worked in the corporate world, so I had some money set aside in my like retirement. So I used that money to start.
Yeah, and that's awesome. That's awesome. And so definitely check out that episode when it comes out, because it talks about how you can use your IRA, for real estate and other options as well. Okay, I think it's hilarious that you keep saying we, because I do the exact same thing. And people are like, "Oh,
I
who's
know.
we?" And I'm like, "Well, I guess it's kind of like the royal we, because I don't know.
It's
There's
just,
just something about, like, well, my husband's got my back, so like it's kind of him too. But like, don't ask him any questions about it because he will have no idea."
yeah.
And it wasn't until recently that he like,
Well, my husband, he's great and he's like super smart. Like, you won't meet anybody smarter than him, but it's just, he's so busy running his business and running his stuff that like the last thing he wants to think about is like, real estate. So I kind of will do the research and make the suggestions, and then he'll just be sweet and go along with it. Or like he'll push me on like numbers and stuff. He's super finance minded. So we're really intelligent about how we do our stuff. But it's definitely like my and he's just sweet to indulge me in that, because let's be honest, like what a nice wife am I to let him go and do all these crazy things. Like we both really balance each other. You can do whatever you want as long as you're happy. I'll follow along and we'll just drag the kids along and we'll make it work for us. And as long as you're happy, and he kind of has the same way that he treats me about things. Like, yeah, let's make sure like you've given up so much of your life for me. Like, let's if you're happy. And yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. And I feel similar that my husband until recently was still in corporate America. So it really was, I would say but like you said, like he had his work thing, I had my real estate thing. And it was until recently that now like he was able to leave his corporate job so that he could come and run our Airbnb and real estate business, which is awesome. So now I
That's
really
so
can use the we.
exciting. Congratulations. I'm
Thank
so
you,
proud of
thank
you.
you.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you. It's super exciting.
Congratulations. I'm so proud of you.
So now I can really say we and not have people be like, do you have a mouse in your pocket? Who else are you talking about?
So, Lonnie, I know you and the mouse in your pocket. No, I was just listening to one of your podcasts. How your goal was to retire before you were 40, or by the time you were 40.
Yeah.
And then you started talking about that you guys like, and I'm doing like air quotes, like retired, but like you still love running your business, so you're not going to stop running business. But I just want to hear you're like way not even close to 40. So I just have to say that for the podcasters out there, like you're retired and you're not even 40. Like I will hope people were listening like, oh, she's 40 now. Cause I was like, actually she's not 40 because I'm a year older than you and I'm not 40.
That's, did
I'm
I
like
not
too close
clarify
to
that?
40. So
For anybody who didn't listen to the episode
just
Erin's talking
for
about,
the listeners out there, Lonnie's far from 40. So
that's awesome.
I have
So
my own goals before I turn 40 and I haven't accomplished them yet. And I'm not 40 yet.
we've
So
still
they
got
will be
time.
done. We need to have another podcast
Deal.
before you and I turn 40.
Deal.
We'll talk about our accomplishments and the mouse in our pocket.
Oh my goodness, I love it. I love it. Oh, you're making me embarrassed. So the episode that Erin was talking about is how my husband
You're
and
so
I
great.
said a long time ago that we wanted to retire by the time we were 40 because that word retire sounded like something that we wanted to do. But as we got older and we got closer to that benchmark, even though Erin's right, we're not there yet. But we realized we didn't really want to like retire and just sit around in rocking chairs for the rest of our lives. We really wanted to just have the control of our time and do what we wanted to do. And so we feel super blessed that yes, we haven't turned 40 yet
Yeah.
and we've been able to do our type of retirement, but which really just means to live the passive income
Yeah.
lifestyle that we wanted and have that control. So yes, but that's embarrassing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And now you're able to do all these fun podcasts for all of us so we can like learn and be inspired. That's great. Good job. I'm proud of you.
Oh, thank you, thank you. All right, so Erin, tell me what is your favorite thing? We've talked about how like it can be really hard living abroad, but let's talk about what are some of the favorite things or the favorite stories or the favorite people you've met along the way, or you've had. Like, what are your favorite parts about all the places you've lived, or a few of them?
Yeah. So everywhere we move, I usually find like a group of people to be really close friends with. Like I have best friends all over the world. They've been super sweet and supportive with me and all of this stuff. Like it's been so cute because my podcast listeners, like people will send me reviews, and like when I go to check reviews on my podcast, I have to like go to like several different countries' websites to be like, oh, well, what reviews did I get from like the UK, or like what reviews did I get from Australia, or what reviews did I get from the US? And so it's kind of been fun. Like I really feel like I've met like so many amazing people and I've really been fired along the way. Like there's a lot of people I've met that are like expats just like me from America, and they are like in one of two camps. Either A, they're super excited to be there and they're really happy, or B, they're just miserable. Like there's a lot of expats that are out there that are just miserable. They just want to be home. They just want to be with their family, but whatever the reason. they are living abroad and they're just like biding their time until they can get back to, so I've kind of really, because I'm just kind of like, sure, babe, let's go wherever you want to go. Like, we'll just make the best out of it. We'll have so much fun. Like, we really find cool things to do in every place we go to. I feel like when we were living in Dublin, it was great because my kids are really interested in science, and they love, like, my oldest is 11 and he loves like anything that's like science, chemistry, biology, like mostly like astrophysics and stuff. He wants to be like an astrophysicist. So it's been really fun because we were able to like take over to just like fly over to to Switzerland, to go see CERN. There's like this particle accelerator that they built under the ground, and they make quarks and the Higgs boson Da Vinci Code. So if you read the Da Vinci Code, you know what this is.
Yes.
What the heck is she talking about? But little things we've been able to like help our kids improve their knowledge or like go explore different things. I feel like, our kids are very well versed in traveling on airplanes and meeting friends and meeting new people, and they love like being exposed to new experiences, and they love getting on airplanes. So yeah, I mean, there's good stuff too. I shouldn't
Yeah.
complain about all the lonely stuff. There's things.
Oh my goodness. I love that. And so what would you say, how old's your youngest again? I can't remember.
Our youngest is 2.
It's 2. Okay. And so, how, and what type of school do they go to? Let's talk about that real quick.
Yeah, so usually when we go abroad, we put them in private schools. When we were in Dublin, Ireland, we actually put them in a public school. And then here in Australia, they're in a private Catholic school called St. Mary's Primary School. And it's like a mix of locals and other expats.
Okay. And in Dublin, did you have any problems with like discrimination? Like, did your kids get made fun of for being Americans at all?
No, no, no. They were really popular. Like, it
Oh,
was really
really?
fun. Everybody, it seems to really like, yeah, Americans. They were really popular, great, kind of little celebrities, but they did get a lot of questions about like Americans. Like, so do you guys have guns at home? Like, like, because, you hear all about the shootings and stuff. And so just like different questions about, I know it's really sad. I mean, of course, especially living with the president that we do, we get a lot of questions about that and gun control, things like that, because the international news is, but some fun things. Like they always like little American candies, so we'll come back with special little candies that are like special for the kids there. Like, they love it and things like that. So
Oh, that is cool. And then also, like, when I think, oh my gosh, how would you ever, tell us about like how your nannies? Like, I think that is awesome. And are they live-in nannies? Do they just come for a little bit? Do you meet them there? Do you get assigned a nanny? How have your nannies worked out? Your international nannies?
yeah, so it just depends on what country we live in. For example, our first trip abroad, like our first assignment abroad, was Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, the help is pretty affordable. So and if you remember, when we moved to KL, we were having a lot of health issues with our son, and we had another little baby. So it was like very time intensive for me as a mom. And Mike was like traveling all over Asia, trying to like set up some private equity business. So I think like it was really helpful that we were able to hire a full-time nanny, especially because I was working so hard on like the medical part of our oldest son, and I didn't have a lot of time to like do all the other. That worked really well, but it was really hard having a live-in nanny because she's the most amazing person in the world. We're like best friends to this day. Like, but it's just hard living with someone else. Like, I feel like in general, but like finding I was like snipping and like saying like not like mean things, but like short answers. I didn't have a lot of patience with having somebody around all the time, like living in our home. Like, and I felt really bad about that because she's somebody that's so wonderful, and like I didn't want to treat people like that. It's hard. It was hard.
Yeah.
And so when we moved to Beijing, we ended up we flew that our nanny in KL out to Beijing for the first 2 weeks to like help us get started and to like train our new nanny in Beijing, like how to like cook the food that our oldest son needs and things like that. And so and we hired this nanny. She only spoke Chinese. So we call her our IE, AYI. She's our IE. And that means like maid or like, well, it was essentially like a maid that would cook for us and help me take care of the kids. So
Okay.
she actually, I don't really know what that means, but that's what we called her, IE. So anyway, but she would only speak Chinese. So that was like a totally different dynamic. So it's like, how am I supposed to communicate with her? Like, what do I need? Like, can you go change the baby's diaper, or can you go like run to the market and get whatever? Cause I'm having a dinner party with my friends and I want you to cook this amazing Chinese dish that she does. So like I actually learned Chinese while I was living in Beijing. One of the reasons was to communicate with our IE and also our Shifu, who was our driver, because neither of them spoke any English. And I learned, I mean, I had like a teacher that would come 3 times a week for several hours a day. It was like important. And so anyway, so that was like our experience when we lived in Asia with our nannies. And then we moved back to the US, and of course we didn't have a nanny, so I was doing everything all by myself, and that was really hard at first because I was like this like spoiled like expat girl, like, well, I used to have somebody that cooked and cleaned for me. Now I have to do it all by myself, and I'm still having babies, but I got used to it, and then I was like back in the swing of things. And then moved to Dublin. In Dublin, we kind of a hybrid. I mean, everything's expensive there. You're paying euros. So it wasn't like we could really afford to have a nanny, or we didn't choose to spend our money in that way. So I had somebody came a few times a week, several times a week, to kind of help clean and take care of the kids a little, definitely the same. But that was actually a really hard time for us. Like I feel like I probably should have had a little bit more help. I did get really run down when we were in Dublin, Ireland. In fact, I ended up getting super sick, and while we were traveling um, through Rome, Italy, I ended up having to be hospitalized for 2 weeks. I like almost died in Rome, and it was just a crazy drama. And I got thing that I was trying to do. I was just trying to do too much while we were living in Dublin. And I think the sun kind of affected, like, we just don't see the sun so much in Dublin, Ireland, like how I grew up. Like, I think my body just needs a little bit more. And I was taking vitamin D, but I ended up getting really super sick and almost died in Rome. So I feel like that kind of took a toll on me a little bit.
Yeah. And then now, do you have anyone in Australia?
Yeah, so once we got to Australia, we were able to, like, one of Mike's coworkers recommended this nanny that she had raised her kids with. Like, she had hired her to help her raise her kids and then her own. So she recommended her like my mom. So she's like a little grandma for the kids, and we hire her like 4 or 5 hours, 4 hours a day, 4 or 5 hours a day, which has been super helpful. Just being settled in a new country, cooking
Yeah.
and cleaning when I am running around trying to like survive in this crazy foreign country. Like just yesterday, we had to go buy a car. We're trying to figure out how to buy a car in a foreign country. I mean, literally, just like every country you move to, there's every system is different. Every bank is just setting up bank accounts, setting up schools. I mean, it's just a lot of work. So it's helpful having a nanny to like be able to just go and do the things that you have to do to help your family survive.
Yeah. And I love that. I don't know. I feel like, that used to be kind of, I don't know, maybe I'll give credit to Rachel Hollis for being one to come out and say, when people say how amazing she is very quick to say, yeah, it's because I've had amazing help along the way. And I feel like some people look at women
Yeah.
entrepreneurs especially and are like, how do you do it all? And it's like, because I have help. Like I love my help, and I have
Yeah.
the support system to make it happen. It's really not just a one woman show. There is help behind it.
Yeah. Tell me about I said, tell me a little about the help that you have to enable you to do all these amazing things.
Oh, well, I would be happy to. So, for me, the first thing I had to outsource was cleaning my house. And so I have a cleaning team that comes in once a week to clean my house. And that's like non-negotiable. In fact, recently when my husband has left corporate America, and then all of a sudden coronavirus hits, and it was like, we need to do cutbacks. And my husband wanted to stop the cleaning team. And I was like, I'm sorry, that's where I draw the line, is because the only way I can get what I need done for my businesses is
Yeah.
if everything else, if I can walk out and things are clean. Don't get me wrong, by day 5, 6, 7, we try to straighten up, but with 5 kids under 11, like, you can only mop and sweep the
Yeah.
floor so many times a day, and you can only, like, I consider it a
Yeah.
huge success if we can keep the house straight. But it's a whole different thing to also keep it straight for long enough to clean it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so to me, that is like just something
Yeah.
that I have to
Oh,
have,
absolutely.
you know? And so that, I would say
Yeah.
that's the biggest help. But I have virtual assistants who help with so much. I have, I use virtual assistants like my best friends, so with all different aspects of my business. Even when I was flipping houses, I had a team of stay-at-home moms, not just that would come into the office or come with me to projects, because I really, when I was flipping houses, I was really passionate about having it be a team of, there's a word coming to my mind, but I don't want to use it. Really rockin', we'll say, uh, yes, really rockin' stay-at-home moms, but also have an entrepreneurial spirit. And so I had a team of moms that one came in and like did my book work, and one was my project manager, one was in charge of choosing every tile color and paint color, and like we were this team of amazing stay-at-home moms, we'll call it, but that also needed a creative outlet,
Good for
and
you.
love that. So I love working with others. There's no way I could be where I
Yeah.
am today without a lot of different help in different avenues. In fact, one of my favorite VAs was a stay-at-home mom in the Philippines, and I loved that. I'd go to bed at night, I'd send her the to-do list, and I'd wake up in the morning, and I'd wake up to, all of these things that were done during the night, thanks to my amazing other half. She's me on the other half of the world, so that I really could be awake, it felt like, for 24 hours and be productive a lot, most of those hours. So definitely I use help. So and thank you for being so open about that. So of your 5 babies, how many of them did you have in the US? Did you have all your babies in the US, or were you international?
No, no. I had a baby in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and I had a baby in Dublin, Ireland.
You did. And what was your experience? Was it like, are people like freaked out, like, oh my gosh, you had a baby in Kuala Lumpur?
Yeah, everybody's freaked out, especially like my mother-in-law. She was really cute. I mean, she loves us and she understands the decisions we make, but a lot of time it's hard for her, to like not be there and like have to trust other countries. In Kuala Lumpur, we actually had an amazing because we were in a hospital that was like the best private hospital in the country, and they have a lot of medical tourism. So we had like our own, like it was like we were celebrities, our own hotel suite with several rooms, maids, and all the nurses that you could ever wish for. Our doctor, the doctor, my OB that delivered the baby, she was a woman and she was Muslim, so she always had her head covering on, like her burqa and her head covering. She was like one of the best in the country. We felt like we had great care. Any food we ever wanted, I mean, we were like celebrities. It was great, and that was because the care we're paying for private. If we had done the public system, obviously the locals that live in don't obviously have that much money to spend, so they wouldn't maybe have that experience, really blessed that way. But and then when we were in Dublin, Ireland, I had a baby there. That was our last baby, and I have C-sections every time, right? So they're literally cutting open the same incision every time, every single different doctor, all these different places. They were never the same city, definitely not the same country. But our doctor there was really good. The healthcare afterwards was really key. I had a hard time.
Mm.
Um, my mother-in-law and I joke, medicine type thing, like a lot of women shared rooms. I paid extra for a private room, but the hospital itself was so old that like the hospital bed I was laying on, didn't have the button to like lift you up and lift you down. Like I feel in like first world, but like I'm used to a button to lift me up because after you have a C-section, you can't use your ab muscles to
Yeah.
lift up.
Yeah.
Anyways, and then like I would press the call button and like it wasn't just like an individual quiet call button to go to the nurses. It would like ring down the whole hallway. So it'd be like beep, 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 beep. So like it would like wake up the whole entire everybody. These girls that
Oh,
have multiple rooms that are like sharing rooms, you know. And then like they wouldn't let you change your baby's diaper in your room.
what?
And they wouldn't let you use baby wipes, only use cotton swabs dipped in water. And so you have, this is what they make you do. And I got caught changing the baby in my own room, got in big trouble. You have
You
to put
naughty
your baby in the
rebel.
cot and walk your baby down the hall, even in the middle of the night, to this baby changing room, change the baby, and then push it back. It was just crazy. And these you could stay the night. So I was like totally on my own. And then they got mad. Anyways, it was just like cuckoo land. It was really, really hard. And I just hate saying that because for some people that's like not weird for them, but as an
Yeah.
American, it was so different. And now I realize how spoiled we are as Americans. You know, not everybody gets the same experience that we do. So it was a learning experience, and I survived it. I mean, like going things makes you stronger.
Yeah. Well, and not only like, oh, well, as an American, but like you had this was your fifth baby. Like, it's like, no, I've done this before. Like, my bed's supposed to go up because I have an incision in my stomach, so
Yeah.
I can't do it. Like, that should be obvious. Oh my gosh. Oh gosh, I had a question and I was gonna write it down, but I just was loving every second of it. Oh, I love that you talked about how your first one that was international delivery was amazing. I was pregnant with Houston when we lived in Mexico, and my parents were kind of freaking out too. And but it was like the cleanest, nicest hospital experience. It was like the fish tank was like the fanciest fish tank I've ever seen, and it was just like high class. But like you said, that's not for everyone. It's just there are different levels. But like I don't know, like it was the
If
nicest.
it's a private, yeah.
Yeah, the private one was absolutely like
Hey,
enjoyable.
I've never given birth with a fish tank, Lonnie. A fish tank. That's pretty special.
Oh, it was fancy. They had fancy fish, but it was, it was
Fancy fish.
fancy Mexico. So anyways, okay, so so you listen to a lot of Bigger Pockets, right? And is there anything else that you like for that you've gotten your real estate knowledge from? Like, where are you getting your real estate knowledge, and where are you feeding that addiction?
Oh my gosh, you're so cute. Yeah, I mean, there's like a ton of books out there. There's like the whole FIRE movement, FIRE, like what is like retiring early with financial stuff. So there's a lot of books about that. Bigger podcasts has a lot of self-published stuff, but like I don't know. I mean, there's stuff out there that like it just like depends on what's calling to you, like what type of real estate investing you want to do or help with. Some of the biggest things for me were just like some of the basics, like how to do property management and how to I don't manage our own properties now, but you need to know a lot about property management to be able to manage your property managers. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot out there. It's what
Erin,
works for you,
let
what
me
you
let me
kind of
tell
feel
you.
called
I know
to.
that you like have spent time all over the world, but let me tell you that most American women do not just be like, "Oh yeah, like yeah, whatever, like I dabble in like buying houses and stuff." Like this is awesome. It's awesome because I have surrounded myself with real estate investors, and the few women that have actually done stuff are very, very few. A lot of them learn, a lot of them gain the education, but they don't actually act, and I think that is huge. So yes, so would you say though your biggest go-to, like if you were talking to some woman that's like, yes, it's time, like I'm gonna get into real estate investing, where would you send them?
Yeah, I mean, just start listening to podcasts while you're doing the dishes. Just
Yes.
start listening to some Lonnie podcast, some Why Not Me Academy podcast, some like Bigger Pockets podcast, just like get started somewhere. I keep thinking like Bigger Pockets needs to do more like women investors that are like just starting out that like really need to be. So maybe that can be your thing, Lonnie. You can just
Maybe I
like,
should.
people
I'll
that are
call up
just
the
getting
boys at
started.
Bigger Pockets and be like, yo, I'm on it. Okay. Well, now let's just we'll wrap up here because I know I've like taken so much of your time. But
Yeah, and I think the other thing too to realize is like, a lot of these podcast companies or books or whatever, they have a specific strategy. Like Bigger Pockets has some like numbers that they really want you to follow and some spreadsheets that you really like if you do it like their method, like really follow. And I know you've done a lot of wholesale, you've done a lot of like fixing and flipping, and all those numbers and stuff like that. I feel like for me, as a mom with 5 kids living abroad, like I can't necessarily follow their prescribed way of doing things. Like I can't be out there holding, can't be out there like fixing and flipping. I probably could actually if I got creative enough and had a really good team. But I feel like for me, it's kind of just has to be like what works for me and where I have like enough maybe like confidence in the people that work for me or the people that I hire to run things that like it just works for me. So I will say like, yeah, like I like big websites, but I'm not like the biggest like success story from their methods because I don't really do their methods because I can't really do it in the way that like they advertise, if that makes sense.
yeah,
You know what
definitely,
I'm talking
definitely.
about? You
And
following this? Yeah.
yeah, no, no, no. I feel
Yeah.
the same way about Bigger Pockets that but there's a lot of good things that they offer. There are some that I don't necessarily agree with, or that the way that they run their numbers even sometimes is different than what worked for me when I was flipping houses. So but there is they do have
Okay.
a,
Yeah.
a
See,
great
that's
wealth of
interesting. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So, okay. Well, last question is if like listen so because the way that if anybody who's still listening by now, I'm guessing is a woman on this episode because we've been so mommy focused, which I love because that's great. But if you had I love that you had your advice of just start
I don't
listening
know,
to
Lonnie. A lot of guys would be interested in this too.
well, boys, listen up and then have your wives listen or your girlfriends because I'm sorry if it's been a little bit feminine focused today. But what would you say, like people who keep on talking about, oh, I want to do that someday. I want to do that someday. I want to do that. What would you say as your advice to get them to actually like take the step?
Well, okay. So like I feel like the real estate piece is one piece that I've kind of learned in my life. And I know we've been really focused on it, but I feel like there's two other like kind of stories that I just wanted to like share that could have helped me just like I feel like a lot of people in life, maybe it's not real estate that's their thing, but like there's like some nudge, there's like some push. Like I felt like with like doing this podcast that I do, that I felt like this nudge is like push, like I feel like a lot of people have that in their life in some way. Like I've actually talked to a lot of people now that I've started my podcast. They're like, I've always wanted to do a podcast. I know a podcast. There's this thing that I've been thinking about, and I know this is what I need to do, but like I haven't had the time. I haven't like had the confidence. Like, and I feel like when I started my podcast, I knew I had to do it, but I had no confidence in myself that like who would ever want to listen to me? Like who would ever like just anything like when you
Yeah.
feel the nudge in your life that you need to do something immediately you have all this self-doubt like I'm not good enough, nobody's going to care, this wouldn't work out, I'd lose all my money or whatever it is. Like I feel like there's something like that. And I where we actually ended up building this our second home, and it's really close to Mike's headquarters, US headquarters, and it's an expensive home, and it's things that like we then after we built it then we found out we needed to move to Australia. So it was like, okay, great, what are we going to do with this house? Well, we could turn around and sell it, we could turn it out. I already have a great property manager in the area, and I had already talked to the property manager that like we needed to like get it. And we were like, hey, I think we could net this much money if we rent. Like we were already running all those numbers, and that's what I'm comfortable with because we already have long-term rentals. But I had this like nudge that like, no, no, you don't do a long-term you don't do a long-term rental with this property because See, okay, see, and you need to do a short-term nightly rental because you need the US, you know what I mean? So this is like now our home, like when we go to this particular state,
I love
okay?
that. Yeah.
And that was really hard to follow through on that nudge. See, this is what I'm saying. Like, if people like in their life, they know they need to do something, but they don't have the courage to do it. I didn't have the courage to do it at first because I was like, okay, who am I going to find to manage it? We live abroad. What if the cleaning company's not good enough and like they leave something on the floor and then we never get any other renters ever again? Or what if there's no way I could run a short-term property management from living abroad? Like, there's no way.
Yeah.
But like, actually, there is a way.
Yeah.
Like, and we had to figure that out, and we had to go through a lot of brainstorming, and we had to find a great property manager that we really trust. And so I feel like the like like you asking almost like, okay, that with it in the context of like the owning real estate, I feel like it's like bigger than that. Do you know what I mean? It's like maybe it's not real estate for somebody, maybe like starting a podcast, or maybe it's starting an Airbnb, or maybe it's starting writing or whatever it is. Like, there's kind of like a lot of self-doubt and a lot of like insecurity that comes along with that by our nature, but like you just have to be strong enough to push through it. And I feel like that's something that I've really learned.
Oh, I love it. Oh my gosh. That is so huge. You're right. Not even just real estate, but just having the courage to take the step, and then you'll be able to find so much more of why it works and why you were nudged that way.
Yeah, because think about it, like most people that have these little nudges, like they don't have 5 kids like we have. But somehow we were able to do it with 5 kids. Like, you think that would be impossible. And like, I live abroad, like you think that would be impossible, but like somehow we figure out a way to do it,
Yeah.
somehow.
It's so funny. The first day, so it wasn't until recently that I got to work a full, like, I won't even say 8 hours a day because I still make it a priority to be home before my kids got home. So it's usually not even a full day, but like a full 6 hours. And I did it 3 days. The first 3 days I did it, like, because my husband had left corporate America and the way that we were juggling things, and then we had enough help. Anyways, the first 3 days I did it. And I hope any of my listeners, like, I hope that you won't judge me. And I hope that you know me well enough to know that I don't mean this. I
No
don't mean
one's
this
gonna
bad.
judge you.
Okay. But like, after the day three,
We
I
all
was like,
love you and are so like inspired.
after day three, I came home to my husband. I was like, I feel like I gave all the rest of humanity a head start. Like, I've had the five, like, been, birthing child after child, and like loving being a mom, but also like changing a grip load of diapers and potty training and whatever. And so I feel like that's kind of been the last decade of my life before I started, just up until recently, really, because number 5 is still kind of potty training. And all of a sudden, so when I said, I feel like everybody else like a head start, like, look out, like, now I get a full work day every, like,
Yeah.
5 days a week. Like,
Finally.
look out, people. Like, I've got stuff that has been building up in the head and now it's all coming out. So look out. But anyway, so if you have kids,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I recently did my virtual time management summit, and it was focused on stay-at-home moms. And I realized that I was just overwhelming some of these sweet stay-at-home moms that were just like, oh my gosh, we can't do that. And I definitely had to remind them, like, there is a season of each life, and you've got to enjoy that season. And I'm
Yeah.
so glad that I enjoyed that season. I'm excited to be in this season and this phase also. But don't feel, if you are listening to podcasts while you're doing dishes, whatever, whether it's real estate, whatever it is, someday you're going to have a chance to implement, and hopefully that day is soon. And don't feel like you have to wait until the kids are gone. But if you have that much energy, then see if you can put it to work now. But if you don't, it's okay. Like, you're doing a very righteous
Yeah.
thing right now. So anyways, sorry. Did you get both of your
Yeah.
three
No,
stories?
I actually agree with that. Were you talking to you? You're talking to me?
Yeah, you. No, just keep going.
Oh. Oh. You
You
like
said you were
looked
good.
off. I was like, oh, maybe she's talking to one of her minions that works for her.
Not right now. They're sleeping.
No, I was gonna say like no, I was gonna say like I actually feel like that's true too because you look at this stage in life that we're talking you and I are talking and like my oldest is 11. How old is your oldest?
He just turned 11.
Yeah. Okay. So, and we both have these little like,
And we both have a 2-year-old.
my little
Yeah.
Jack. Yeah. And my little Jack's not potty trained yet, but like, I feel like I'm finally starting to be able to like come into like this zone where like I can think about things like, okay, I can publish a, or I can, write a book or whatever I decide to do. But like, I feel like it actually like, I remember when I was in Beijing, when my kids were really little, and I had this crazy desire to like do all this real estate and all this, and the feeling came back to me was like, you know what, like, yeah, that's great, but like focus on what you need to focus on right now, and then when your youngest is like in school, like the idea, like the thought was like when your youngest is like in preschool, then you can start like really putting in the time and doing all this stuff, because then you're going to have a little more time and you're not like taking it away from like maybe what's most important. And I actually like didn't exactly follow that, because I still am involved and I still got a lot of things started before that. But I feel like I'm all like our real estate portfolio and like our Airbnb and like, it's off right now. I'm not super involved in any of it. So I do have time for my kids, but like once my youngest is like in like getting more involved, if that makes sense. I don't
Yeah.
know. So
Yeah.
I just am affirming what you said.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a strong believer that there is a season, there is a phase, and enjoy each phase for sure. So I love it.
Yeah,
Erin,
and not to get stressed. You're
yes. Yeah. Don't get
listening
stressed
to all
that
these
you're not.
podcasts of all these high achievers.
Yes.
So,
No, definitely. I love it. All right, Erin. Well, where can people reach out to you? They'll find you on Instagram on Erin Featherstone, but you can look up at her podcast, her really cool
yeah, my
podcast.
Instagram. Yeah, my Instagram is Erin.Featherstone. Like that's my Instagram handle. Name Featherstone in between the two. My podcast is called Come Follow Me, a podcast. But like, it's kind of spiritual in nature. So if you're not super churchy or religious, like don't worry about it. Don't feel obligated to follow my podcast. But I share a lot of like insights and like how I've been able to survive and all of this with more just like kind of religious twist.
Yeah.
Just I don't know. I mean, I don't really have much of agenda. I don't run a business or anything like some of the people that you talk to. It's just kind
Look
of fun to
out.
get
Her
on and
baby's
chat
going to
with
go to
you,
preschool
and you're
next
just
year, and
inspiring.
then look out. She might. So,
Stop.
next phase. All right. Well, thanks so much for being on today, Erin.
Just
I
gonna
really
take
had
one day at
fun
a time
catching up.
over here, Lonnie. Okay. See ya.
Thanks.